We know nothing. I think that is the take with this baseball team. And yes, if you saw my Locked On Now, I was hoping for the reverse jinx, saying anticipating the sweep. Sweep is avoided. The White Sox, who kill lefties, don't get to the lefty. Cleveland, somehow, the one pitcher who is even remotely frightening, they find a way to survive and win. This team. I mean,
Cockroach.
it's just unbelievable how they go against every expectation all the time. Team Chaos gets the win. We'll get into it today.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am Jeff. Over there is Justin. We got a win to talk about. Want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get your podcasts. And yeah, I'm gonna do the Mets trade because people want to hear what my crazy idea was. We're gonna talk about some mock drafts because people have been asking more about draft stuff because the team has been frustrating. We're gonna get into the game, preview the Mets series, and yeah, Justin, to you.
That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, Guardians avoid the sweep. Doesn't make any sense, but it's fun. I guess it's baseball's one of those things. What do they say in Fever Pitch? It's good for your soul to invest in something you can't control.
Never watched it.
Might be. Oh my! Well, I might be having those a reading at my wedding. Just saying. Yeah, and just to expect the unexpected, like you said. It was still a frustrating game. I mean, look, they only scored 3 runs, so it's not like we're going to sit here and be like, the fix. They won. They beat the White Sox. They hit the ball hard. But, I mean, it's amazing what happens when you play defense and you hit the ball over the wall occasionally. You know, I'm not saying they're power hitters now, but, hey, they out-homered the White Sox today. The White Sox didn't hit the ball over the wall. The Guardians did once, and the Guardians did something they don't really do. I heard on the broadcast that today, this was the first time a Cleveland catcher has thrown out 2 base runners in the same game since, you want to guess the year?
1978.
Okay, that's a little hyperbole there. 2020. Roberto Perez in 2020 threw out 2 base stealers in the same game.
It feels like
That hasn't
1978
happened in
watching the
3
team this year.
years. 3 years. This is a team that used to be like catcher defense is the most important thing. And they haven't thrown out 2 base runners. I mean, look, teams weren't running a lot on Perez at the end until he got hurt.
Yeah.
They didn't really run a lot on Hedges. Hedges had a hard time throwing runners out occasionally too. So
Hedges' arm was in decline last year. I think we all saw that.
Yeah. But wow, like I can't believe it's been 3 years. So, like I said, it's amazing what happens when you play a little defense. I mean, the Guardians did have an error. Rocchio did kind of. It was an error, and it's a ball Jose Ramirez would have gotten to. It was an in-between hop that kind of ate up Rocchio and at third base. And I saw people on Twitter saying, "Oh, it'd be great if we could also, make routine plays." If that was not a routine play, but Jose Ramirez definitely would have had that play. Rocchio doesn't play a lot of third base, and yes, he will learn to make that play at some point. But he's not a natural third baseman. Neither was Jose Ramirez, and Jose Ramirez has learned to make that play. But Guardians got a hit for the first time since April 29th from a catcher. First thing, they also got an RBI from their catcher since then. Or no, they had a sac fly in between then. So there is that. But Gallagher threw out 2 runners. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say the first star of the game goes to Cam Gallagher because he cut down the run game by the White Sox and he guided Logan Allen through a tough second inning that made a big difference. That things could have fallen apart right there. And he drove in he didn't drive in the go-ahead run, but he drove in the run that got him a 2-run lead, which, that's important with how little they're scoring right now. And again, not results over process here. Cam Gallagher at the plate with runners at the corners with 1 out should have pinch hit. Like, let's be honest here. Yeah. They should have pinch hit for him right there. They didn't. He got the hit. That's great, but the process is still bad. He should have been pinch hit for.
Right now, you pinch hit for a catcher.
Right. You have Josh Naylor on the bench who was going to pinch hit Wednesday night, and maybe he wasn't fully ready to go, but they were going to pinch hit him Wednesday if the opportunity came up. I would have done it there, although I think I'm not sure who was pitching at that point. Doesn't matter. Okay, so either that or Tyler Freeman. I would have pinch hit there. They got lucky though, but you know what? Gallagher caught a whale of a game. That was important. Tito called him a calming influence. So we're going to talk about Allen's second inning here. I want to play this clip of Gallagher talking about getting at Logan Allen through that second inning and just how he really has been a calming influence for the young pitchers on this team. It's something to watch.
It says you're a calming influence around here, and especially with the young pitchers. Bases loaded, nobody out. 10 pitch at bat for Alberto. How do you get a rookie through that?
Yeah, I was watching his body language. I was seeing how he's since he's come up here, he's so composed. That's one thing. With a lot of young pitchers, they come up here, stuff starts hitting the fan. Their emotions kind of get the best of them, and they kind of lose their control and command. But I was keeping a close eye on him, and it was like he was cruising out there with nobody on. So I was going to go out there and check on him, but he was building off the momentum and everything. And after that first out, I was like, let's go, and did a heck of a job. And he kept himself composed and got out of that inning without any runs.
How satisfying.
Are we advocating for more Cam Gallagher, Jeff? Some people have.
Here's the thing. Like, honestly, Cam Gallagher isn't good. Like, let's just be honest. Yeah, he does things well, but like
defensively, he is better than Zunino this year.
He is. No, I'm not debating that. But they should be looking to improve the backup catcher position. I'll say it again, Kevin Plawecki has proven to be a better guy the past few years. There's ways they're not going to. It's very clear Tito really likes him, and Cam Gallagher is good. I mean, it's one of those things. Whenever we talk about Bo Naylor, I don't think Tito has any interest in moving off of his current catcher combination. So convincing, we might get to the point where David Fry gets sent down, and when Bo Naylor they feel is ready enough to be a partial contributor, we might still run 3 catchers. I'm just saying. Like I think Gallagher is here to stay. What I will say is I think he should probably be a late inning defensive replacement.
I agree with that. I wouldn't be opposed to going with Zunino against lefties until he can kind of turn things around, but it also limits his opportunities. I don't know. That's a hard thing to do. My theory is this, and this is what I always take away with Miles Straw too, is that when the offense is bad, which it is right now, you have to rely on run prevention to keep games close. You can't have catchers who can't throw runners out at second. You can't have pass balls. You can't have catchers interference. You got to do whatever you can for run prevention. I know people are like, oh, you have a black hole in the lineup with Straw and whoever and Cam Gallagher, Mike Zunino. If those guys who are black holes in the lineup, if they are contributing plus defense, and you're just hoping that Will Brennan and Andres Jimenez and Josh Bell and whoever else get things moving in the right direction, right? I need plus defense from those guys because you need to play really strong with run prevention in order to keep games close while your give your offense a chance, give your pitchers a chance. And I will say for Logan Allen and some of this for Zunino too, is some of the pitchers just don't give Mike Zunino a chance. Like there's been stolen bases late in games. That Yankee series comes to mind where Karinchak and Clase just didn't give Zunino any chance to throw a runner out at second base because they don't hold runners and they're long to the plate. Logan Allen has a great slide step. He's fast to the plate. And that gave Cam Gallagher a chance to throw 2 runners out. This is a two-way street. It's not just on the catchers. We've talked a lot about this lately. I talked a lot about it on Twitter too with Bo Naylor's issues at AAA. It's as much on the pitchers as it is the catcher. Cam Gallagher had good chances today to throw runners out at second base. So, kudos to Logan Allen for a lot of things. And maybe Gallagher, like Tito said, is a calming influence over these guys because he did have a 35 pitch inning in that second inning. He had the bases loaded with nobody out. Luckily, it was the bottom of the order, and Hanser Alberto, who's playing second base for some reason for the White Sox. Thank you, Pedro Grifol. Appreciate that, and the White Sox mismanagement. I don't know who else they have, but he's bad. Although his 700 OPS would look good in Cleveland, I'm sure. He went through a 10 pitch at bat, popped out to first base, and then Allen came back with strikeouts to Civale and Jake Marisnick, who for some reason is also playing for the White Sox. Good for them.
Yeah, it was nice. That was nice of them to let Jake Marisnick play since he's
it was like a hangover lineup, right?
It felt like it.
Yeah, you had Hanser Alberto, Sebi Zavala, and Jake Marisnick 789. That is very much appreciated. Yoan Makata and Gavin Sheets did pinch hit late, but that was very nice. So good effort by Allen to get through that second inning. Just pitched really. It wasn't even his best start, really. I mean, he threw the ball well, I thought, but he struggled in that second inning. Otherwise, he was really good. Made some very clutch pitches, but good for Gallagher. He gave Gallagher a chance to throw runners out. Gallagher got it and threw it. Super, super important. All right. Couple more things on today's game. Arias and Savali's rehab start. Jeff's Mets Guardians trade. Mets Guardians preview for the weekend. All coming up here in just a moment. All right. Our new sponsor, SoRare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace that trains you into owners with an officially licensed digital trading cards featuring players from across 30 MLB teams. I am going to open a reward for my team this week, and it is Marlins first baseman Garrett Cooper, who would look.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes. Garrett Cooper this season, who is doing pretty, I don't know if he's doing really good, but that's a nice reward. I'll take that.
Been hurt again, unfortunately.
Is he hurt? Well, that does always happen with him. Yeah, that was my reward this week. Last week I finished with 96.25 points. I had Marcus Stroman, who had -3, Alex Lang, who had 21. Great week for him. Marcus Semien, 44. He's been on fire. Jared Kelenic working out strong. Good for him. Spencer Torkelson, who has been a little better late, only 3 points. Brian Reynolds, 13 points.
I had a 150 last week, so I got.
You would have beaten me. Well, you can open up your start your account at SoRare.com/lockdown. That's SoRare.com to draft your team of free play cards. Set your lineup, start competing today to win epic rewards like merch, VIP experience, scarcity cards. Prizes will vary depending on the competition. Again, that is SoRare.com/lockdown to start playing today. And don't forget, 7:10, I think, or 7:05 on Friday night, Guardians Mets, Sirius XM. Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus will have the call for you on Sirius XM. Okay. Just should mention Gabriel Arias, great day for him. Home run and
double
hit and a double.
Second hardest hit ball of the game. It was second and third hardest hit ball of the game. Jake Burgers was the hardest. I think he might have been.
Arias had the second hardest hit ball of the game of all players. And what was his other one?
The double was
and third. Yeah.
109.
And look at that. He hit it 14 degrees the second time and 24 degrees the second time. That little bit of launch angle matters. Not saying everybody's got to swing for the fences, but like go back to that first inning where Quan and Rosario both lined out to start the game. Their launch angles were like 7 to 10. And that second inning where the White Sox had the bases loaded, they were getting the ball up to like 15 and 16 and 17. Like that little bit makes a difference. And Arias got the ball in the air today. And guess what? Hit ball hard, win the game. I know people were like saying, I'm done with Gabriel Arias. He shouldn't be playing. We need to see Tyler Freeman. I still want to see it. Again. I think he has a higher
defensive and offensive ceiling.
Yes.
And he has a higher defensive floor.
Yes.
But a lower offensive floor.
Yeah, lower.
That's the only thing. 3 out of 4 categories, he's better than Freeman.
Yeah. And again, I think my point was proved the other night too. When Freeman was batting and he ripped that ball to third base and got a hit, he could come off the bench and swing the bat well because of his swing and his profile. Arias cannot do that because he's a guy who needs regular playing time just because of the nature of his offensive skill set. So good for him to get some regular playing time. Hopefully he's playing over the weekend.
Just so I don't get accused of being a hater as I do with Freeman. It's like, again, I think there's a lot of places he could be, and I think the ceiling is a Med Rosario type of player. Lots of line drives, good speed, but average to below average shortstop defense. And it's shortstop or at second because I don't think the arm translates to third long term.
I would agree with you there too. I think he's still he could still be a starter on a good team. I would put him at second base, not short, but he can be a starter on a good team and give you pretty good stuff. Arias and Savali, real quick, good rehab start in Columbus. 34 pitches, 90 and 92. He got 7 swings and misses out of 16 total. That's a 44% riff rate. You will take that all day. A couple curveballs look really good, cutters, sinkers. So he'll make another rehab start next week, and then after that, we'll see what happens. As we said, Triston McKenzie will make a rehab start on Saturday. We'll talk about that next week on the show. I'm going to say this for the offense right now, the way things are going, and I don't want to see, to me, I said this yesterday, to me, sending down Logan Allen and Tanner Bybee doesn't make any sense. I know, you'll say, well, they won't, this will avoid Super 2 with one of those two guys, and you got to think about the long term with them. I don't think, and I know you're not going to disagree with me on this either, I don't think sending them back to AAA helps their development in any way. I don't think there's anything left for them to prove at AAA because the last bit of development has to happen at major league level. Tanner Bybee can strike out any AAA fool, and Logan Allen can too. He proved that he overcame what happened to him last year in AAA. This team needs all the pitching they can get. Bybee and Allen are currently two of the 5 best starters this team has on their 40-man roster right now. They need to be up. You can't send them down. And I agree with Civale and McKenzie coming back. Peyton Battenfield will go down. But with the way this offense is, and you can limit Bybee and Allen's innings, you can maybe keep Aaron Savali healthy by not pitching him every 5th day, even though he'll probably get hurt eventually anyway, no matter what you do. And it doesn't make sense to me to send Bybee and Allen down because they are not going to benefit from it. Other than the Guardians gaining financially from it. 6-man rotation. I would like to see a 6-man rotation. Limit Bybee and Allen's innings, keep them a little fresher. Hopefully you'll keep Savali healthier. You might even keep McKenzie healthier because, you never know what's going to happen with him sometimes. And, there's no benefit on and Bybee being AAA.
So I'm 100% against it.
The offense you can get.
So I'm 100% against it. And my main reason for this is changing expected rotations, expected schedules when you have guys with injury histories and having their bodies go through a different break period is actually more likely to lead to further injury. You might think more rest is better, but for bodies, typically it's the routine they're used to. So I think going to a 6-man could actually lead to more injury situations for pitchers because you're asking them to do something they're not as used to doing. So for me, it's more about that. I think you want to keep with what guys, and then it also, like, pitchers are some of the most superstitious, routine-driven individuals I've ever met in my life, and I don't want to mess with the routine. Like, if they're used to that 5-man rotation, when you go to 6 and you have off days, that extra rest sometimes seems like a good idea, but just can sometimes end up messing with heads and doing things. So for me, when you have guys, McKenzie coming back from injury, Civale coming back from injury, Bieber did have that 1 year with injury and has never been quite the same pitcher since. If you look at the velocity drop, I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, I hear you. So maybe in theory, it works better than in practice is what we're saying.
That's like I said, I don't have a problem with running all 6 but I just changing a routine is a danger.
Yeah, it is definitely harder to pull off in the middle of May. That's something you have to maybe talk about in spring training.
Yeah.
And decide, like, this is how we're going to prepare you to do this. You're right. And pitchers are very schedule-y, habitual creatures in how they approach things, side days and things like that, when they can lift, when they can't lift. I don't know. I think it makes, like I said, I think it makes sense in theory. It won't. Let's be honest. It's not going to happen. I'm saying I'd like to see it in theory. I know it's not going to happen, and I think you make a good point in practice. It probably doesn't work as good as we'd like it to work, but I think in theory it's an interesting idea because this team needs all the help they can get with pitching, and I just don't think that Bybee and Allen benefit from being back in AAA when these two guys come back. But again, I've been saying also that at some point something's going to happen. They'll send Peyton Battenfield down, and somebody else will get hurt, or something else will happen. Maybe they'll make a trade, Jeff.
So
maybe they will.
People wanted to know about this, and I was just sitting around the other day at work, and I was just thinking about this Mets team that they're going to face this weekend. And when I look at the Mets, Tyler McGill is out there who's not very good. David Peterson was supposed to be the guy. That hasn't worked out for them. Losing Edwin Davis just decimated their bullpen. In terms of WAR, Cody Singai at 0.5 is their only starter outside of David Peterson, who they sent down, and Max Scherzer, who both have 0.1s. They have no value, no WAR value, no wins from their pitchers hardly at all. And their bullpen outside of I'd say David Robinson and Cody Singai and True Smith, it has been ugly. So this is a team with needs. And what I was kind of curious about is they just called up Mark Venitos, who I've liked him for a while. And then there's Brett Batty, who I wasn't as high on him out of high school just because he was like turning 20. He was kind of like Trevor Rogers. Like him and Trevor Rogers were like very old high school guys. But Batty's playing well, and Vanitas had a home run last night. If you're curious, Brett Batty, let's see, 241 average, 326 on base, 392 slug, 0.4 WAR, 105 runs created plus.
Can you play the outfield? Yeah, I know he's a natural third base, but they were
trying. I've always thought he was a decent athlete. Like, I know he's been a natural third base, and I was going to go look and see in the minors.
They tried him in the outfield just because
didn't they try him in like right field? It's like I feel like he could potentially play there. And then the other guy, I would want to. And okay, so I buried the lead. William Stearns is losing his mind right now. So here's the thing: when I look at this pitching rotation, some people want to ship out Quantrell. I think much like a Met a year ago, like there's limited value on Quantrell. Like, look what Jordan Montgomery netted, who's a better pitcher than Quantrell. Yes, he had less years of control, but he netted Harrison Bader. Harrison Bader is a fine player. He is
Guardians could use that right now. Let's be honest.
I mean, but Harrison Bader also has injury issues, and what is he right now? He's hurt.
He's also a D-bag.
Yeah, but he's their D-bag. Like, some might view Miles Straw the same way.
Yeah,
as a similar type. But we've seen that doesn't have a ton of value. Savali, everyone knows he's injury prone. What are you going to get from him? And you don't want to trade the young kids, and that leaves Bieber. And with the young players stepping up, this deadline is kind of your last chance to sell mega high for a team to get 2 seasons of control instead of 1. Yeah. And that's a big deal. He's still pitched well. And at the end of the day, for as much as we freak out about losses in velocity, he was still a top 5 pitcher in the American League last year. Yankees fans were terrified about facing him in that deciding game. They didn't go to him, but like, he still is viewed as an ace pitcher. He is still a dynamic pitcher. And if you feel good about your top 5, and you got Gavin Williams just sitting around the corner ready to go, right? And Joey Cantillo is already on your 40 man. You can afford to make this trade now. You couldn't in the off season because we thought they'd be better.
Still Plesac hanging around for depth,
yeah.
Even though no one's excited about depth, at least he's depth. Okay.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay.
Maybe not.
Wow.
So when I was looking through this, and then also with the way Allen and Bybee have pitched, that's the primary driver of why I'm okay with considering this deal. With the Mets, absolutely struggling so terribly. I would love a world side note where I can get them to pick up like 90% of Carlos Carrasco's contract and trade Cookie back to be that depth arm. But that's not going to happen. So on top of Brett Batty, the other guy I want is Kevin Parada. We have talked how much about how this team has no catching depth. And the Mets actually have a top 10 prospect who's a catcher, who's their current starting catcher. And if you want Batty and Parada's multiple years out, but he gives you another option back there. And I think that bat plays even if he moves off the position. And Parada might be the number 1 power bat in this system the minute they acquired him, on top of being their number 2 catching prospect right out of the gate. You get both those 2 for Bieber, but you probably need a slight thing to increase the value here. And that's where I see if Zach Plesac can be that for a team that, again, has 0.1 for their number 2 and number 3 pitchers. Verlander's at a 0, and Verlander and Scherzer are both older. Plesac has the advantage where maybe they want to try him in the pen for a bit, but he also has multiple years of control and gives them more depth, which they need. So it also helps clear your books. You do a 2-for-2. Well, in this case, it's a 2-for-1. So you clear 1 40-man spot because Parada doesn't need to be added anytime soon. Batty immediately moves this team. Again, not ideal to have him try to learn the outfield on the fly, but try
it with Amed Rosario. Why not?
Try with Amed Rosario on the fly. You can also have him play a few games at first, third. You want him to play every day and see, he's a young kid. See how he can juggle and play. Like, occasionally have him at third with Jose at DH. Occasionally have him at first. Occasionally have him in right. He gives you a bat you need, a guy who would immediately be by runs created plus their second best hitter. And you get a really interesting catcher with power. And it hurts your rotation, but then it also cleans your rotation in a weird way. And I think you and I both agree with just some of the goings on with Bieber, even in a world where you could re-sign him. I don't know if I want to give him the big money he's going to require. So you get a bat to help right away. You get a bat that maybe your 2 biggest needs in terms of power and position. And that was my idea. I mean, I know there's going to be people thinking that's too little. There's probably going to be people thinking that's too much. I'm I'm sure there's Mets fans who think that's a terrible idea. And then there's Guardian Mets fans who are like, yeah. And it all comes down to your view on Bieber. Like, that's what it really comes down heavy on. But my general view is, hey, if you got Venitos and Batty are just kind of the same dude.
I can see it. I don't really have a whole lot of background on those two guys like you do, but I did love Kevin Parada in the draft last year, and I agree. They're going to trade Bieber this winter anyway, I think. So maybe you do it a little bit early.
Then you don't have to send people down, and you know, Gavin Williams all of a sudden maybe could pitch this year. You know, if something happens, like you're lining up to actually give those young kids a role while maybe making your offense better this year and definitely in the future.
Yeah, I don't know that this winter, if you give Bieber to the Mets, that you get Kevin
you don't.
Parada. I don't think so. And let's be honest, I know Beatty and Vientos are interesting, but to me, Parada is the big fish in that deal because I'm really interested to see what he can do behind the plate because, you know, catching is weird here. So, I don't think that happens over the weekend. Okay, we got to talk about the Mets Guardians this weekend and a little bit of mock draft stuff too. So we'll get into that as we wrap up today's show.
Justin is always great putting up our little banner ads here. And right now, I can tell you, Justin is wearing some bird dogs. You don't want to know what pants he has on. No, I'm kidding. He told me after I wore him the last 2 days, he's wearing them now. And this is behind baseball. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to share this, but he said he's probably going to take him on his honeymoon. That's how much he likes these fans. Like when you go on your honeymoon, that is your ultimate time for comfort and relaxation. What's Justin taking? His bird dogs. Do we really need to say too much more than that? I've told you I could sleep in these shorts. I could wear these shorts to work. On field day next week, I am taking bird dogs to work with me. That is 100%. I can call that and guarantee it. I got to spend a day outside chasing around fifth graders. I'm wearing my bird dogs for sure. They're great. I'm probably going to buy a pair of bird dog pants because the shorts are so nice. I'm like, if I can get away with wearing these as work pants, that's a huge net win. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. If you're looking online, you can see the exact one that they sent us. I quite enjoyed it as I saw the tumbler. So you want to get that, get your order. I'll be happy to have 2 tumblers as soon as I order some pants. It is funny names, amazing comfort.
birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. And then this weekend, check out SiriusXM for the Guardians and Mets broadcast all weekend long. Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus have the call. Are they still in Flushing? Is it Queens? I can't remember where they're at.
Yeah, it's still in Queens. I would go to. I never got to Old City Field when I lived in New York, but I got to City Field quite often. My good buddy Nick, if you're out there listening, or David Voice, they're both comedians in New York. David's got a YouTube. We would go to Mets games from time to time.
Nice.
I made it to Old Yankee and New Yankee, and I made it to New Shea. I never made it to Old Shea, but I
think Old Shea was Flushing. I think they're in Queens now.
Yeah, they're in Queens now. Well, I mean, Flushing is in Queens.
Oh, okay. I don't know a lot about New York's boroughs, so. Good.
So, here's sacrilege. I think my favorite stadium in my time there is New Shea of the 3 I went to. I really liked it. It's a nice stadium, good sight lines, some nice food stops. It's a fun place. I enjoyed. The Mets became my New York team when I was there. That was the only acceptable team, anyways.
That makes sense. Yes, and we didn't realize this until a couple days ago. I alerted Jeff; he didn't even know this. Guardians and Mets will be the Sunday night baseball game of the week at 7:00, and that is going to feature Shane Bieber and Justin Verlander. A little bit of I wanted to say ace off, but they're both kind of teetering on the edge of being called aces the way they're pitching so far this season. But still a fun matchup. Saturday is at 4:10. That is Tanner Bybee and Max Scherzer. I'm going in reverse order here. Friday night, though, is Cal Quantrill and old friend Carlos Carrasco. Would love to win Friday night 1-0 just because I have a lot of fondness in my heart for Carlos Carrasco, and he's not pitched very well this year, which means he'll probably pitch very well against the Guardians. And
it's the one game I'll kind of be somewhat happy if they lose. Like Cookie's got a special place. I can't hate on him.
1-0 win.
Yes, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, don't beat him up.
I want them to win, but if they lose, that's going to be the least upset I've been all year. Is if Carrasco pitches, who gets the win.
Definitely want to beat Justin Verlander on Sunday Night Baseball because Justin Verlander continually pisses me off, even though he's a kind of a marvel. And then I don't know. I've always kind of liked Max Scherzer, but Tanner Bybee versus Max Scherzer should be a point of viewing on Saturday if you get a chance to go. My question to you though, Jeff, is how many times are they going to bring up the Francisco Lindor trade on Sunday Night Baseball? I'm going to go set the over under at 3 or 2.
See, I was thinking 2.5.
2.5.
I was thinking 2.5 was what I was going to set it at.
No, let's
and
say I would say 3.5.
Especially because like Ahmed and Andres are not doing great. And then
Lindor stinks.
No, Lindor is not doing great, and he's got the big contract. And I'm also curious if those Jason Kipnis comments will come up.
I was going to ask you that too. Do you think they'll bring up the Jason Kipnis? And to Kipnis' credit, I think he said what he meant. I think he meant what he said, but I think he doesn't like how it came off, how he said it. I think he meant to say it in a different way. But he has really backtracked over those comments on Twitter last
Yeah, I think he just meant to say that, like, he's not a leader. Like, I don't think he meant it as a negative thing, but I think he's just like, yeah, he's not a leader. Like, there are guys who are leaders in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and someone on Twitter was like, what do you mean he's not a leader? Runs out every ball hard every time. Like, running the ball
out. That's
not
leadership.
That's not leadership. That is the bare minimum of being a professional baseball player that makes over $30 million a year. My God, if you think that's a leader, that's your problem right there. That's not a leader. Now, maybe he does other stuff that is leadership. I don't know. But if that's your, like, bar for being a leader, whew, no wonder.
And can I also say, I'm not going to call anyone out. Anyone who tries to say that Lindor was the face of this franchise or was the centerpiece of this franchise doesn't know baseball, because Jose Ramirez was the better player for the last 2 years they were together. Like, Jose was better than Francisco Lindor.
And he took
so Jose was an MVP candidate their last 2 to 3 years together.
Top three.
Yeah. And Frankie never was. Francisco never was. But don't get me wrong, he's a dang good player. But yes.
Yeah. And as much as it would be great to have Lindor here, I don't think Green and Wolf will pan out at all. I really don't see those guys being major leaguers. No. Ahmed's been fine for as much as we gripe about him. He's been fine.
League average.
And Andres, I think Andres will rebound from this nightmare. When you factor in the money, I will take those two over Lindor.
Yes,
and paying him that
every day
for the next. Yeah, I will. I know some people aren't going to agree with that, and it's nice to have Lindor, but I'll take those two guys.
Because if you have Lindor, you don't have Jose. So it's like, do you want Jose plus those two, or do you want Lindor? And then it's not even a debate.
All right. But before we get out of here, real quick, want to talk about a couple mock drafts. One of them had
Charlie Soto and Kevin McGonigal was the other one.
No, so the first one had Charlie Soto, and then it had Josh Rivera from Florida. The other one just had Kevin McGonigal, 23. They only did one round.
Okay, so here's my thing. I love Carlos, Jim Callis, Jonathan Mayo to death. One is at Baseball America, one is at MLB.com. I think they're all fantastic at the job. They're all great people. I follow them. I have not had one negative interaction with any of those three people.
Agreed.
I also think that is outdated views. Here's the thing. Teams are not liking to draft high school pitchers. Prep pitchers
Guardians
are falling into
banned from taking high school pitchers right now.
Well, and they should be, but teams in general are not taking them. They are sliding on boards. I can go back to 2020 when everyone mocked Jared Kelly to Cleveland over Carson Tucker. When Carson Tucker hasn't worked out, that nets you Petey Halpin. So we can't complain that much. It's a trade down.
Work out then.
But I don't think Jared Kelly is necessarily going to turn anything. I haven't looked at him this year, but it hadn't been great leading up to this year. But people were looking for a landing spot. And Cleveland, hey, they've drafted pitchers recently. And a lot of people are sticking with this whole idea about Cleveland and age-related models. But Cleveland hasn't leaned into those age-related models as heavily as they used to. Charlie Soto is very young. He's the toolkit. He is a Bud Grant type of pick. But you know what? Bud Grant isn't the draft director, scouting guy anymore. They have a different person at the top, and different people drastically change things. Like the White Sox started drafting prep guys when they had their recent change, and they went from Nick Hostetler to I can't think who's the guy there now. But Cleveland hasn't really gone heavy on preps in general the past few years because there's so much more data. And it's people last year disagreed with me, and I'm like, no, they're going to go college. There's more data on that. They also don't go for guys who are kind of popping up. Like the one thing to look at, it's like Chase DeLauder was higher before the season began. His value dipped as the season went on. Daniel Espino, value dipped as the season went on. Ethan Hankins, value dipped as the season went on. They tend to have a board that is more based on fall than spring. They're going to find someone that they believe in and, think that he can be the player for them. And McGonigal is, again, the one thing I'll say, though, is they don't typically lean into the older guys. McGonigal might be a draft-eligible sophomore in a few years. He's a guy who is not necessarily old, but like when you're talking about someone who could be a draft-eligible, It's also because they moved the draft, but I don't think they're going prep. And for the same reason I said a year ago that they like their models, they're not spending as much time scouting in person. We heard about them, letting go a bunch of scouts 2 years ago, and their models are going to look at, and it's the same reason Nolan Schwandel, I'm blanking on how to say his name.
Yeah.
Chanel. Listen, he was not good on the Cape, and he's not facing any competition. That's a New York
crush the Cape. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not a that's a New York Yankees guy. That's not a Cleveland Guardians pick. So, I mean, Colton Ledbetter isn't in either of these mocks. I don't think in the top 30. I would watch him to Cleveland. They're going to appreciate a guy who steps right into the SEC and performs. Unfortunately, I don't think Matt Shaw is going to make it anymore. There was a point in time where weirdly he looked like he was sliding. He is their perfect guy. I've seen some things with Hurston Waldrop from Florida. His ERA is at 5. But Florida is terrible at pitcher development. Jack Leftwich just crapped on his own program to a degree, saying that they are extremely rigid and don't let guys do their own thing. So you got a guy with electric stuff, a plus slider. I think he's got top 10 ability. If they had him going to New York or Atlanta in the MLB one, if he is there, he's not getting past Cleveland. He is the perfect type of guy that they will fix up and turn into an ace type. And then I'll have to really dig into some Cape stats. If Tommy Troy's around, he's someone to watch. I think he would be the other guy. But I don't think either of those picks make a lot of sense. But I'll be honest, as someone who's written a lot of mocks and used to having his contract to write mocks, sometimes you're just looking for landing spaces that make sense because you don't want to get to this point where a guy slides too far. But at the same time, I'll say it's totally the wrong approach because you know what happens every year in the draft? Somebody slides too far. Cam Collier, he's not getting out of the top 10, pick 19. And there's even other ones greater than that. And there's always going to be a few guys who don't sign. So they'll slide even further. But yeah, we'll have some more draft content because I'm gearing up for it. I think that's it for the show. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. I saw Moving Target says he watches the show twice a day. He does it once a night and then later on when he's a little more awake. So thank you to one of our everydayers there. I just want to thank everyone who's taking part, downloading, in spite of the frustrations and being a part of the Locked On Guardians team. Thank you for doing that. And this one's already gone long. So just let's go Guardians, go.